Imagine this for a moment. You're standing in front of the mirror, telling yourself all the reasons why you couldn't, why you didn't, why you still haven't. You've got a list ready. Not enough time, too tired, too busy, not the right moment, too much on your plate. And the truth is, those excuses sound convincing in your head. They make you feel safe. They protect your pride from the sting of admitting you just didn't do it. But here's the hard truth. Life doesn't care. It doesn't care about the reasons, the stories, or the justifications you've built. Life measures you by one thing: what you actually do. You can stand there and tell yourself you meant well, you had good intentions, you plan to start tomorrow, but tomorrow doesn't come just because you asked it to. Life doesn't stop, it doesn't wait, and it doesn't negotiate with your excuses. While you're explaining why you couldn't, someone else is out there doing it. While you're convincing yourself that conditions aren't perfect, someone else is working with less and making it happen. Excuses may sound reasonable. They may even earn you sympathy from others, but they never produce results. Life isn't moved by your explanations. It doesn't grade you on effort or on how elaborate your reasons are. It only recognizes the outcome. Did you move? Did you try? Did you push past the resistance and take action? Or did you sit still, giving yourself permission to wait for another day that never comes? The people who succeed are not the ones with perfect circumstances. They are the ones who stop waiting for everything to line up. They stop bargaining with time. They stop expecting life to feel sorry for them. They understand that excuses are nothing but lies. We tell ourselves to stay comfortable, and comfort, as nice as it feels in the moment, will rob you of your future. Here's the reality. Life is indifferent. It will not stop spinning because you were tired. It will not hold back opportunities because you weren't ready. It will not pause time so you can get around to it later. Life is happening right now, and the only question is whether you're going to meet it with action or waste it with excuses. And maybe that feels harsh, but it's the truth you need to hear. Because the longer you hold on to excuses, the more they chain you down. And when you wake up years later, you'll realize the only thing standing between you and the life you wanted wasn't luck, wasn't fate, wasn't resources. It was the excuses you protected. So let me ask you, how many more days are you willing to give away to your excuses? How much longer will you trade potential for comfort? How much time will you waste waiting for perfect conditions that never come? Because until you answer those questions with action, nothing changes. Life does not care about your excuses. It only responds to your effort. Life rewards action, not excuses. That's the principle too many people overlook, and it's why they stay stuck while others move ahead. Think about it. Every excuse you've ever told yourself may have sounded logical, maybe even convincing, but did it change your situation? Did it bring you results? Did it get you closer to your goals? Of course not, because life doesn't measure your reasons, it measures your results. The truth is, life doesn't hand out rewards for explanations. It doesn't matter how detailed your excuse is, how valid it feels, or how many people nod in sympathy when you say it out loud. You can explain all day long why you didn't start that project, why you didn't chase that dream, why you didn't put in the work. But when you look at your life, there's only one question that matters. Did you act or did you sit still? Action is the great separator. It's what divides those who talk from those who do, those who wish from those who achieve, those who live with regret from those who live with results. And the uncomfortable reality is that while you're explaining your circumstances, someone else with fewer resources, less support, and bigger obstacles is out there making it happen. Life doesn't reward the person with the best excuse. It rewards the one who took the step, even when it was hard, even when it was inconvenient, even when it didn't feel like the right time. Let's get honest. Excuses are comforting. They protect your pride in the moment. When you say, I couldn't do it because I was too busy, because I didn't have the time, because I didn't feel ready, it softens the blow of admitting you didn't move. It allows you to walk away from responsibility without facing the sting of failure. But that comfort is temporary, because deep down, you know the truth. You know that while your excuse might shield you for a moment, it won't build you a better future. Excuses may protect your ego today, but they destroy your tomorrow. Action, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. Action means showing up when you're tired, pushing through when you're unmotivated, and working even when you don't have all the answers. Action demands effort, discipline, and sacrifice. And yes, it's difficult, but it's also the only thing that changes your reality. Life pays you for action. You see it in your health when you show up for the workout instead of making excuses. You see it in your career when you take the risk instead of sitting back. You see it in your relationships when you put in the effort instead of waiting for things to magically improve. Excuses are invisible. They leave you with nothing to show. You can't cash them in. You can't build with them. You can't hand them to the world as proof of your potential. But action leaves evidence. Action creates results you can see, touch, and experience. The hours you put into studying pay off in knowledge that no one can take from you. The extra effort you invest in your work shows up in the opportunities you create. The discipline you practice in your daily habits adds up to a life that reflects your choices, not your excuses. Here's another hard truth. Life doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't care if you had a rough start, if people doubted you, or if circumstances made it harder for you than for someone else. Life isn't keeping score of your struggles to adjust the outcome. It simply rewards whoever acts, whoever tries, whoever refuses to quit. That may not feel fair, but it is empowering because it means you always have a choice. You may not control what happens to you, but you control whether you act in spite of it. And that's where your power lies. Think about the people you admire, the ones who've built something meaningful, who've overcome incredible odds. Do you think they never had an excuse? Of course they did. They could have stopped at any point and said, "It's too hard. I'm not ready. I don't have enough." But they didn't. They chose action over excuses. That's the only difference. It's not that they had better circumstances, it's that they acted anyway. Excuses give you nothing but regret. Action, even when it doesn't go perfectly, gives you growth. You learn, you adapt, you get stronger. Every time you take action, you prove to yourself that you're capable. And over time, those small steps compound into massive results. But if all you do is explain why you can't, you'll stay exactly where you are, watching others pass you by. So ask yourself honestly, are you living in excuses? Or are you living in action? When you wake up tired, do you let that excuse dictate your day, or do you move anyway? When fear tells you it might not work, do you listen, or do you take the step regardless? When things don't line up perfectly, do you wait for the right time, or do you create the time by acting now? Your answers to those questions are shaping your future. At the end of the day, life doesn't owe you anything for what you meant to do. It only rewards what you actually do. Your excuses will not matter 5 years from now, but your actions will. The work you put in, the discipline you build, the risks you take, those are the things that will define your future. Excuses fade, results remain. And that's the brutal, liberating truth. Life rewards action, not excuses. If you want change, stop talking about why you can't and start proving to yourself that you can. No one is coming to hand you success. No one is pausing the clock while you make up your mind. Time is moving, opportunities are passing, and the only way to catch them is through action. Because when all is said and done, your excuses won't build you anything. But your actions, they'll build you everything. Excuses keep you stuck in comfort, and comfort is the silent killer of potential. On the surface, comfort feels good. It feels safe, familiar, easy, but comfort has a hidden cost. Because the longer you stay in it, the further you drift from growth, from progress, from the life you could have built. And excuses are the chains that keep you tied there. Every time you say, "I can't because," or "it's not the right time," what you're really doing is giving yourself permission to stay exactly where you are. Think about it. Excuses are like cushions. They soften the reality of your inaction. Instead of admitting you didn't try, you tell yourself you couldn't try. Instead of facing the truth that you chose not to push, you convince yourself the timing, the circumstances, or the resources weren't right. And in that moment, it feels comforting. It feels easier to accept the excuse than to face the discomfort of responsibility. But what happens over time? That comfort turns into a trap. You wake up one day and realize you've been telling yourself the same story for years, and you're still in the same place. Comfort zones are deceptive because they don't look dangerous. Nobody feels pain sitting in comfort. You're not bleeding. You're not falling apart. So you tell yourself it's fine. But here's the truth. Growth never happens in comfort. Success never happens in comfort. Every great achievement, every transformation, every breakthrough happens when someone was willing to leave comfort behind and step into discomfort. Excuses trick you into believing you can stay safe and still reach your goals, but the two cannot coexist. You cannot hold on to excuses and expect progress at the same time. Excuses are rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. And so we create stories to protect ourselves. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. I'm not ready yet. But if you peel back the layers, you'll see that what you're really saying is, I'm afraid of what might happen if I try and don't succeed. Excuses disguise fear as logic. They make it sound like you're being rational, when in reality, you're just protecting yourself from discomfort. And here's the brutal truth. Discomfort is the price of growth. If you avoid it, you avoid progress. If you cling to comfort, you'll live a smaller life than you were capable of living. You'll settle for less, not because that's all you could achieve, but because you chose to protect your excuses instead of confronting your fears. Let me put it this way. Excuses may feel like they're keeping you safe, but really, they're keeping you stuck. Every time you choose comfort, you're trading long-term fulfillment for short-term relief. You're giving away the future you could have for the ease of the moment. And one day, that trade catches up to you. Because while you're sitting in comfort, time keeps moving. Opportunities pass. Other people act. And you're left with nothing but the regret of knowing you could have, but you didn't. There's a saying, the chains of comfort are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. At first, it feels harmless to make excuses. You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, and it feels small. You tell yourself, I don't have the time right now, and it feels reasonable. But over time, those little choices pile up. They become habits, and suddenly, years have gone by, and you're carrying the heavy weight of all the opportunities you missed because of excuses. That's the danger. You don't notice the trap until it's too late. But let's be real, the comfort zone is addictive. It's easy. It requires nothing of you. And that's why it feels so good. But good feelings in the short term often lead to bad outcomes in the long term. Eating junk food feels good in the moment, but it damages your health. Skipping the hard conversation feels good in the moment, but it damages your relationships. Making excuses feels good in the moment, but it damages your future. You cannot let temporary comfort steal permanent progress. The people who break free are the ones who decide that comfort is not enough. They reach a point where the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. They realize that excuses are lies, and those lies are robbing them of the life they want. And so they step into discomfort on purpose. They embrace it. They say, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's inconvenient. But I will do it anyway. And that decision changes everything. Excuses keep you average. Action makes you exceptional. Everyone can make excuses. Most people do. But few are willing to let go of them and take the uncomfortable steps that lead to greatness. That's why success is rare. That's why growth is rare. Because most people would rather stay comfortable than risk failing. But here's the irony. Staying in comfort is its own kind of failure. It's the failure of never knowing what you were capable of. You have to ask yourself, what's more painful, stepping into discomfort now or living with regret later? Because those are your only options. Excuses feel safe, but they create regret. Action feels risky, but it creates results. The choice is always yours. So if you find yourself making excuses, pause and ask, am I protecting myself or am I imprisoning myself? Because that's what excuses do. They lock you inside your comfort zone and they convince you it's a palace when in reality it's a prison. And the longer you stay there, the harder it is to break free. The truth is, life will never reward your comfort. It will only reward your courage. If you want to rise, you must be willing to let go of excuses and step into the discomfort that growth demands. Because excuses may feel safe today, but they will cost you everything tomorrow. Accountability is freedom, though at first it may sound like the opposite. Most people hear the word accountability and think of restriction, rules, or even punishment. They see it as being boxed in, forced to answer for every decision, held under pressure. But accountability, when embraced, is not about chains. It's about release. It's about finally taking the steering wheel of your life instead of sitting in the passenger seat, watching things happen and blaming circumstances. True freedom begins the moment you decide to stop making excuses and start taking ownership. When you hold yourself accountable, you strip away the illusion that someone else is responsible for your results. You stop waiting for luck, for opportunity, for someone else to open the door. You stop pointing fingers at your boss, your parents, the economy, the government, your past. Accountability cuts through all of that and says, if my life is going to change, it begins with me. That statement is powerful because it removes the excuse of helplessness. It forces you to stop outsourcing responsibility for your future. And in that shift, you gain control. You take the pen back and write the story yourself. Excuses may feel easier in the moment, but they put you in chains. They convince you that you're powerless. They tell you life is happening to you, not through you. And when you live that way, you'll always feel trapped. You'll always believe you're at the mercy of something or someone else. Accountability shatters that lie. It declares that you may not control everything, but you control enough to change your trajectory. And that control is freedom. Let's be clear. Accountability isn't about perfection. It's not about never messing up or pretending you have it all together. It's about owning the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, this result is mine. If I don't like it, I can do something about it. That mindset is liberating because the moment you take responsibility, you take back the power to act. You stop waiting, stop blaming, stop delaying, and you start moving. Think about the people who inspire you, the ones who have built lives worth admiring. They're not necessarily the most talented or the luckiest. What sets them apart is that they accept responsibility. They don't hide behind excuses. When they fail, they own it. When they succeed, they credit the effort it took to get there. And because of that, they grow faster, they adapt better, and they build stronger foundations. Accountability is the soil where growth happens. The irony is that most people avoid accountability because they think it limits their freedom. They don't want to be held responsible because that means admitting when they fall short. But avoiding accountability doesn't free you. It traps you. It keeps you cycling through the same mistakes, repeating the same patterns, stuck in the same story. Without accountability, you're just drifting. You're at the mercy of circumstances, constantly waiting for things to change. That isn't freedom. That's bondage to your excuses. True freedom means knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you can respond in a way that moves you forward. It means trusting yourself enough to take ownership of your decisions. When you live accountable, you're no longer at the mercy of the past or of other people's choices. You reclaim your power. Even if someone wronged you, even if life was unfair, accountability says, that may not have been my fault, but my response is my responsibility. That mindset frees you from bitterness, resentment, and helplessness. It unlocks growth because it shifts the focus from what you can't control to what you can. Accountability also builds integrity. When you hold yourself responsible, you keep your word to yourself. You say you'll do something, and you follow through. That builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. And when you trust yourself, you feel stronger. You stop questioning whether you can handle life because you've proven to yourself that you will handle it. That inner trust is one of the greatest forms of freedom you can have. The problem is, many people confuse accountability with guilt or shame. They think being accountable means beating yourself up for every mistake. But accountability is not self-punishment. It's self-empowerment. It's not saying I'm a failure. It's saying I failed, but I can do better. It's not about dragging yourself down. It's about lifting yourself up with honesty and action. Accountability doesn't tie you to the past. It propels you into the future. And here's the thing. Accountability is contagious. When you live with ownership, the people around you feel it. They see your consistency, your honesty, your refusal to blame or complain, and it inspires them to raise their own standards. Accountability sharpens relationships because people trust those who take responsibility. They respect those who don't make excuses. And when you surround yourself with accountable people, you build a culture of growth and strength that pushes everyone forward. Freedom isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about embracing it, because responsibility is what gives you the authority to change your life. When you avoid responsibility, you give that authority away. You let excuses dictate your future. But when you embrace accountability, you reclaim your life. You say, yes, this is on me, and because it's on me, I can do something about it. That's the ultimate form of freedom. Imagine the difference between these two people. One says, I can't lose weight because my job is stressful and I don't have time to exercise. The other says, my job is stressful, but I control how I use my time. I can wake up an hour earlier, or I can walk during my lunch break. Which person has freedom? The one making excuses or the one taking ownership? It's obvious. The excuse maker is trapped by their story. The accountable one is free to act, free to change, free to move forward. Life is not impressed with excuses. Life rewards those who act, those who take ownership, those who refuse to shift blame. And the sooner you adopt that mindset, the freer you become. Because accountability removes the weight of pretending. It removes the burden of waiting. It strips away the false comfort of excuses and replaces it with the real power of action. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never want to go back. Accountability may feel heavy in the moment. It forces you to face uncomfortable truths. But in the long run, it's light. It frees you from regret. It frees you from wasted time. It frees you from the prison of excuses. It gives you the strength to rise above circumstances and take full command of your life. That is freedom. That is power. And that is the mindset that separates those who live fully from those who merely survive. There are two kinds of pain you cannot escape in life: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is that discipline hurts now, while regret hurts forever. One demands effort, sacrifice, and discomfort in the moment. The other lingers for years, sometimes for a lifetime, as you look back and realize what you could have been, what you could have done, and what you could have achieved if only you had chosen differently. Discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't feel good in the beginning. Waking up early to train your body, forcing yourself to read when you'd rather scroll, choosing to save when you want to spend, staying focused when distraction calls. None of these feel easy. In fact, discipline often feels like punishment to the lazy part of you that wants comfort. But here's the truth. The small pain of discipline is always lighter than the crushing weight of regret. Regret is a thief. It robs you of peace because it reminds you of what you lost, not because you weren't capable, but because you chose not to act. It whispers, if only you had tried harder, if only you had started sooner, if only you had stayed consistent. And that voice doesn't go away. Regret lingers in your memory and becomes heavier with time. You can never go back and rewrite it. That's why it's the most painful burden you can carry. Discipline, on the other hand, pays you back. Every time you choose discipline, you invest in yourself. It may not feel rewarding right away, but over time, it compounds into strength, confidence, and the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices. They all add up. And while others are drowning in the regret of missed chances, you're reaping the rewards of the choices you made. Let's be honest, we all want success, growth, happiness, and fulfillment. But not everyone is willing to endure the discipline required to earn it. It's easy to dream, but it's hard to commit. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Without it, your dreams remain fantasies. And the people who never build that bridge are the ones who later look back and say, I wish I had. The difference between discipline and regret is timing. Discipline asks for pain up front. You pay with sweat, with effort, with patience, with sacrifice. But the reward comes later, and it lasts. Regret is the opposite. You enjoy comfort up front. You rest when you should have worked. You delay when you should have started. You indulge when you should have resisted. And while it feels good in the moment, the cost shows up later and it lasts longer. Think about the student who studies every day versus the one who makes excuses and parties instead. The disciplined one feels the pain of sacrifice in the moment. Less fun, less relaxation. But when exam results come, that pain turns into pride and opportunity. The other one feels no pain in the short term, but when failure arrives, regret hits hard. That's life in every area. Health, career, relationships, finances. Discipline asks you to sacrifice now. Regret forces you to suffer later. What makes regret so brutal is that it's preventable. You can't always control every circumstance in life, but you can control whether or not you gave your best. Regret doesn't come from failure. It comes from knowing you didn't try. Failure hurts, but it teaches. Regret doesn't teach. It just haunts. And the haunting is often worse than the sting of discipline ever could be. Discipline is love for your future self. It's proof that you value who you could become enough to endure the discomfort today. Regret is betrayal of your future self. It's proof that you value the temporary ease of now more than the permanent fulfillment of later. When you frame it this way, the choice becomes clear. Would you rather sweat a little today or cry tomorrow? Would you rather endure the sting of discipline for an hour or carry the bitterness of regret for years? The truth is, no one escapes pain. Life guarantees it. The only question is, which pain will you choose? The pain that builds you or the pain that breaks you? The pain that sharpens you or the pain that shackles you? The pain of discipline or the pain of regret? The difference lies in whether you're willing to face temporary discomfort to avoid permanent disappointment. Every great story of success is built on discipline. Athletes endure grueling training sessions. Entrepreneurs sacrifice sleep and comfort. Leaders embrace difficult decisions. They all understand that discipline costs something, but the payoff is worth it. Meanwhile, those who avoid discipline often tell stories of what could have been, living in the shadows of their own excuses. Here's what makes discipline powerful. Over time, it gets easier. What feels like unbearable sacrifice in the beginning becomes habit. Waking up early becomes normal. Pushing yourself becomes second nature. And once discipline becomes habit, it stops feeling like pain. It feels like freedom. On the other hand, regret never gets easier. It only grows heavier with time. You have a choice every day. Every morning you wake up, you decide whether you'll lean into discipline or drift into regret. One path will demand effort, but it will give you pride. The other will demand nothing of you now, but it will steal your peace later. That's the choice, and the people who win in life are not the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who choose the right kind of pain. So the next time you're tempted to quit, to delay, to make an excuse, ask yourself, do I want the temporary sting of discipline now, or the permanent weight of regret later? Because you cannot escape pain. You can only decide which pain you're willing to carry. And when you look back on your life, you'll never regret the nights you pushed, the sacrifices you made, the effort you gave. You'll only regret the chances you didn't take, the work you avoided, the excuses you protected. Discipline may hurt, but regret will crush you. And when you understand that, discipline no longer feels like punishment, it feels like freedom. Turning excuses into fuel is one of the most powerful shifts you can make in life. Most people use excuses as a way to stop themselves. They use them as walls, as reasons to give up before they've even tried. But what if you took those very excuses, the I can't, the I don't have, the I'm not ready, and turned them into fire? What if instead of letting excuses block you, you use them to push harder? That's the difference between people who stay stuck and those who rise. Every excuse you've ever made holds a story. I don't have enough time. I don't have the right background. I wasn't born with money. I don't know the right people. And while most people use those stories to justify why they can't succeed, you can flip them. Instead of saying, because of this, I can't, you say, because of this, I must. That small change in language is the difference between quitting and conquering. Think about the people who've built greatness in the face of adversity. Many of them started with less than you have right now. They didn't let lack of money, education, or opportunity stop them. They let it drive them. They said, I don't have the luxury of excuses, so I'm going to make my circumstances the reason I fight harder. That's the mindset shift that transforms weakness into strength. Excuses, if you look closely, are just disguised energy. They're words, emotions, and frustrations bottled up inside you. And you can choose what to do with that energy. You can waste it by repeating the same excuse over and over, convincing yourself why nothing will change. Or you can convert it into drive, into hunger, into determination. Imagine taking every excuse you've ever made and flipping it into fuel. I don't have enough time, so I'll learn how to manage it better than anyone else. I don't have the right connections, so I'll outwork everyone until the right people can't ignore me. I don't have resources, so I'll learn how to be resourceful. The truth is, excuses reveal your pain points. They show you the areas you've been avoiding, the places where growth is required. Instead of running from them, use them as guides. If you keep telling yourself, I don't have discipline, that's your signal. It's exactly where you need to focus. If you keep saying, I've failed before, that's the proof you've tried and you're still here. You can try again, smarter, stronger, better. Excuses don't have to be the end of your story. They can be the beginning of a new one, if you choose to reinterpret them. Turning excuses into fuel requires reframing. Every time you hear yourself making an excuse, catch it. Don't let it pass unnoticed. Write it down. Then ask, how can I use this? Instead of letting it shut you down, let it spark a plan. I don't have time becomes I'll wake up an hour earlier. I don't know how becomes I'll learn step by step. It's too hard becomes if it's hard, that means it's worth it. This mental shift turns excuses into action. But it's not just about mindset, it's about emotion. Excuses usually come with frustration, disappointment, or self-pity. Instead of letting those emotions weaken you, channel them. Anger, when directed, becomes intensity. Frustration, when redirected, becomes persistence. Even fear can become fuel, because fear shows you where the stakes are high and where you care deeply. You don't need to kill these emotions, you need to harness them. Look at history. Some of the most successful people didn't have easy lives. They weren't handed opportunities. They faced setbacks that could have been lifelong excuses. But instead of letting those excuses define them, they used them to build resilience. They turned rejection into hunger. They turned lack into creativity. They turned pain into purpose. That's what separates those who rise from those who settle. The ability to convert obstacles into energy. Here's the reality, excuses don't go away. You'll always have reasons not to start, not to push, not to risk. Life will always give you something you could point to and say, see, that's why I can't. But the people who win in life aren't the ones who wait for excuses to disappear. They're the ones who rise anyway. They hear the same voices, they face the same challenges, but they refuse to let excuses be the final word. Instead, they make them the first spark of action. When you stop fearing excuses and start using them, you unlock a new level of resilience. Suddenly, nothing can stop you, because every obstacle becomes fuel. The more excuses life throws at you, the more fire you build. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as the one who bends circumstances to your will. Imagine, for a moment, if you had never made a single excuse. Imagine where you'd be if every time you wanted to quit, you used that feeling to push harder. That's what's possible when you master this shift. It doesn't mean you'll never feel tired, scared, or doubtful. It means you'll use those feelings as reminders to act, not reasons to stop. Excuses are common. Everyone has them. What's uncommon is turning them into fuel. That's what separates average from extraordinary. Because anyone can give a reason why they didn't succeed. Few can look at the same reason and say, that's exactly why I will succeed. So the next time your mind says, I can't because, stop, pause, then finish the sentence differently. Say, I can because of this. That shift can change your life. Because at the end of the day, life doesn't care about your excuses, but it will reward you if you turn them into fuel and take action anyway. Life will never bend to your excuses. It will never slow down because you weren't ready, and it will never hand you success simply because you wanted it. The truth is brutal but freeing. Life only respects action, effort, and result. Excuses may make you feel better in the short term, but they will never build the future you want. Discipline will. Accountability will. Courage will. Every excuse you've ever made can either bury you in regret or fuel you toward greatness. The choice is always yours. You cannot escape pain, but you can choose the kind of pain you live with, the sting of discipline today or the weight of regret tomorrow. And when you decide to take full responsibility, when you stop waiting, blaming, or hiding, you step into a freedom most people will never know. So let this be your wake-up call. Stop giving power to your excuses. Stop protecting them as if they are keeping you safe. They are not. They are keeping you small. Trade them for discipline. Trade them for accountability. Trade them for action, because at the end of your life, you will not regret the nights you worked hard, the times you sacrificed, or the moments you pushed through fear. You will only regret the excuses you clung to, instead of the chances you could have taken. The world does not reward excuses. It rewards resilience. It rewards persistence. It rewards results. And if you want freedom, if you want success, if you want fulfillment, you must decide here and now to rise above your excuses and act anyway. That is where strength is found. That is where transformation happens. That is where your true life begins. Choose discipline. Choose ownership. Choose action. Because the moment you stop living by excuses, you start living with no limits.